Typically, this model is not as beautiful as this one. Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. A couple of months ago, I had somebody drive out to me and sell me 3 interesting guitars, so we're going to slowly document them, and 2 of them were unique mid-2010s era Gibsons that I think you guys are going to really enjoy. But this first one is from the Gibson Midtown series, but have you ever seen a Midtown this beautiful? Oh yeah, it's just this flamey, almost quilt maple top with the root beer finish. It looks like an ES355, so what is going on with this thing? Let's learn all about it. So in late 2011, Gibson announced for the 2012 model year the new Midtown series, and it lasted about 5 years until roughly 2017-ish. But the whole idea of this series was to create an electric Spanish looking guitar at Gibson Nashville. At this point in time, you had Gibson Nashville over here, and then you had Gibson Memphis over here, which typically created your electric Spanish instruments. And you can watch any of my ES3X5 reviews to learn that those are constructed in a maple poplar maple sandwich for the top, back, and rims. They are semi-hollow and they have arched tops and backs. But Gibson wanted to create a Nashville product that looked similar but doesn't actually have any of the traditional elements. So you're going to notice these are completely flat tops, and that's because they are not constructed in your normal way. For all intents and purposes, you could technically call this a 335 shaped Les Paul because it has a solid mahogany back, typically they're multi-piece, and then they just slapped a maple top on it. What they do to create the whole fake semi-hollow vibes is they just chamber out the mahogany body, so it's very similar to a chambered Les Paul in that aspect. However, they dress these things up to make them beautiful. Throughout the course of the series, it started off with the standards. There were humbucker and P90 variations out there. You could say it's playing off the 335 with the humbuckers and potentially a 330 with the P90s, but it had Les Paul standard-like appointments as far as the inlays go. But then they also had a custom, which I happen to have one of these in on consignment right now. This is the one that I did my full review and documentation on. Basically, it's a 355 in this aspect because you've got the block inlays, it's got the rich light fretboard, it's got the custom emblem on the headstock. It was very similar to the standard, just slightly more dressed up, and sometimes you could find nice exotic finishes like this cherry Sunburst. However, then you have the Deluxe that we're talking about today. Yeah, this is one of those weird times where the Deluxe ranks higher than the Custom. So typically within Gibson's literature, it ranks Melody Maker, Junior, Special, Deluxe, Standard, Custom. Now you could argue that Deluxe and Standard are kind of on the same terms, but as far as the market's concerned, a Standard is more desirable to more people. Another time that Gibson decided to use this unique ranking was in the 80s on the 335S, the solid body 335. Something about weird ES guitars. They just like to do this weird ranking, but you can check out any of these episodes for more info on that. But occasionally in Gibson history, they flip things around just to keep you on your toes, I guess. So the Deluxe technically ranks higher. Now, what's the biggest difference between the Deluxe and the Custom? That's kind of why I'm making this video. It's really they just put a nicer maple top on these guys because typically all the Customs are plain. The pickups and wiring and construction all seem to be the same. Your binding looks the same. But it would be worth noting that this was a 2016 limited edition and came in 2 exotic colors. So we're talking about root beer today. However, my absolute favorite one is this cool blue one called Ocean Water. According to this old Gibson post, there were 150 of them made. Now, whether that's 75 of each color or 150, I'm not exactly too sure. But however you slice it, there were not many Deluxe made. But then they also had the Midtown Signature Bass, which was a play on the old Les Paul Signature. And then they had the Midtown Kalamazoo as a limited edition. It was the Midtown flair of a Gibson Birdland. You can check out this episode if you want to learn more on that and see weird guitar puppetry. So if you think that's a little bit cheeky of Nashville to steal Memphis's thunder here, it's kind of funny if you start to think about it because Memphis decides to retaliate against Nashville and create the ESLP lineup, where it's Les Pauls constructed in the usual electric Spanish method with the 3 layers of wood and binding them all together and all that. So back when these things were brand new, a lot of guys just got confused why they were so cheap on the used market. Like, you used to be able to get them incredibly inexpensive. I'm talking like the regular standards. Like the Customs, they would run you like 12 to 1600. Nowadays it's like 18 to 25, and these Deluxe models fetch even a little bit more, but it's mainly because they're starting to get some age to them. But unfortunately, the Midtown series is just plagued with defects. Now, most of the defects just came down to finishing quality, like you'd find a lot of finish checking by the binding around the nuts. But thankfully, so far on this Deluxe, I'm not seeing all the usual defects, so I think they really paid extra attention to these. So if you're going to get one, so far it looks like maybe this is the one you want if you want to spend a little bit extra. And I think the reason why most people kind of started to have a negative connotation towards the Midtown series is simply just the fact that they weren't expecting what they should be. If you go into these thinking chambered Les Paul in the shape of an electric Spanish guitar, you're going to be a lot happier than thinking, oh yeah, this is a really cheap semi-hollow. So I hope that's a good little crash course here, but let's get into the nitty-gritty details of these and throw it on the workbench to take a look at its parts and specs. Inside our root beer flavored friend here, let's go ahead and check out these pickups. So our neck position is as described. It's a Burstbucker 1, and you'll notice it came with an extra screw from the factory. That equals bonus tone. And let's see if we won the lottery again. Bridge pickup. Ah, darn, no bonus tone, but it is a Burstbucker 2. I get readings of 7.96 k ohms for the bridge position, 7.65 for the neck, and for fun, the middle at 3.9. Let's check out our cavities now. So we've got RO, which normally stands for 1960 reissue, but no, this time RO is the code for the finish. Root beer. You can see we got a long neck tenon on this model. But yes, that answers my question right there. Were they using veneers or actual solid tops that are about a 1/4 inch thick? It is a real figured maple top. You can see the quilting action here as well. I always like these side profile shots. You never see enough of them. But our bridge pickup cavity reads DS, DC, D and or O 16. 16 standing for our year, and of course you know what that means. Got our regular Nashville style one by Advanced Plated Incorporated. That's what the API branding right there is. It has the hex key adjustments within your posts if you'd like to use those. And this is a full weight tailpiece by the same company. This thing cleaned up beautifully. You know, I was always holding out this review and demo for the blue one, but I've got to say, I've come to really appreciate this root beer finish with this particular top. Generally, I have not been a big fan of the Midtown series in the past, but this one, it just might convert me because the attention to detail just seems so much better on this model. Like, maybe they were just pumping all those other ones out so cheaply and that's why they got a bad reputation. But if you like the idea of the Midtown series, but you just wished it had better QC, maybe try one of these out. It's either that or I just happened to get lucky with this one. But I'm not seeing any of that annoying binding shrinkage going on with this. And this finish pairs really well with the whole F-hole scene because you can still see the mahogany colors through the F-holes, but it pairs great with this finish. And they paint the edges of the hole black, which also kind of complements our finish that we've got going on. But we've got 2 volumes, 2 tones, 3-way toggle switch right here, output jack along the side. But moving on from our 2-piece maple top and mahogany body, we've got the mahogany neck with the Richlite fretboard. If you do happen to have a Richlite board guitar and you're curious how you're supposed to clean it, Richlite's website just says take a damp cloth, wipe it down. So that's what I always do. If you don't like how pale they start to look, just eat some greasy chicken wings and then start playing. That might sound disgusting, but that's kind of what it is. As you play these, your finger oils will just naturally darken it and make it slick. I've seen some Richlite boards that look really good because they have been seasoned. But I really wish this model could have got real mother of pearl. That would have set this thing off so much. But no, it's just your acrylic. But at least it has some nice man-made figuring within it. But we're rocking a 24 3/4 inch scale length with a 12-inch fretboard radius, a nut width of 1.69 inches. That increases to 2.11 by the 12th, with a first fret neck depth of 0.87, increasing to 0.91 by the 12th. That stays rather slender. So a slender C is the best way to put it. But I measure approximately a 15-degree headstock pitch, with a neck angle of about 3 degrees. Our truss rod is our usual style and in healthy shape, with our aforementioned deluxe logoed truss rod cover, and our acrylic Gibson logo with the custom emblem and all the fancy bindings that we've got up here with our Grover tuners. Moving on to the back, it's a nice deep red/maroon color, very similar to a dark back gold top. You can see our 2-piece seam line right here, if you catch it in the light just right. But you can also see some beautiful ringy wood grain on this side. It's actually quite nice when you can view it in person. It just appears almost black at most angles though. But I will never forget the first time I took a Midtown series guitar apart. It's so mind-blowing. You ready? Look how they route these things. It's so strange. They route out just enough to put their pots in so they can get in there and solder and do what they need to do. They've got their toggle switch there, and then they have another little hole right there to get that pot in. So why on earth do they do that? If they were to route this entire thing out like they normally do, if you flip on over to the front side, you would see the black backplate looking through the F-hole. So they tried to minimize that as much as possible. Now, can you see this small area right here? Yes, but that's a little less crazy than seeing the entire thing. But we've got our Gibson branded pots, and I might actually have been wrong with my findings that I saw, because we can see our quilted maple right here, which is all great. But the maple I'm seeing exposed right here does not exactly match. It could just be that the wood looked a little bit different before they routed it away. But the reason why they even have to take it down that extra step is all due to the toggle switch. Because if they didn't, it wouldn't fit right underneath this ledge and they would have to like thin this out somehow. But the way these are constructed is you have a chamber on this side, it still has the center block, and then there's a chamber over on that side. Got a metal output jack plate, and stock from the factory you had the large Gibson strap buttons. The other one is up here on the horn. Then moving up the back of the neck, it's pretty much all the same stuff with our reddish colored finish, Grover tuners, 2016 model stamp, as well as our 2016 serial number. Let's take a closer look with our endoscope. So right here what we're seeing is the center mahogany block. Although in this case it's probably more appropriate just to call it our chamber that we're in, because it's not actually a separate block. That's just part of the body. We're just in the area that was all routed out. But yes indeed, that does go all the way up to our cutaway area, so they completely chamber out both sides, and that is where our pickups go into, and we can see our F-hole. So this is just the top side of our maple top. You'll have to let me know, do you think that's the same, or do they have some sort of a layering system going on here? I mean, I'm starting to see the figuring on this side too. It's just much more extreme in this step down area for some reason. Here you can see a closer look at what we were talking about before. So that was this F-hole over here. Let's see, are they hiding anything in this one? I don't think anybody's ever documented this side. I mean, it's pretty much just all the same though, as far as going all the way up to the cutaway area and then looking towards our strap button. So yes indeed, we can confirm it's just a chambered body. We don't have any curved edges or anything like that, because we don't need to. But all said and done, this one weighs 8 pounds 5 ounces. So let's go ahead, plug it in, and hear how this one sounds and see if it's better than what I've tried in the past. Got some good bite to it. I love that bridge pickup. Got that woody tone for the neck. Middle position. Now that we know all about the Gibson Midtown Deluxe, what are my final thoughts on this thing? I seriously think this has changed my entire thought process about the whole entire Midtown series. I always wanted to try one, but the standard that I first got just didn't really impress me, but it's because I was in the mindset of, it's just like a 335. But again, if you go into these thinking chambered out Les Paul with a funny body shape, you're gonna like it a heck of a lot more. That's what I'm gonna tell you. I really do think Gibson put a little bit more time and effort into these deluxe ones because they got to sell them for some pretty nice premiums just for putting some figured maple on top of it. And maybe some of it is just a beauty thing. This guitar really speaks to me as far as that aspect goes, and it has a unique construction. So at the time of recording, the Midtown series is not considered a collectible run. However, give it another 10-20 years, maybe people will think differently about these, because I really don't see Gibson USA diving back into making cheaper 335s that are just chambered out solid body guitars. So they're kind of unique and interesting. I hope you enjoyed learning about them. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will catch you guys tomorrow on the next episode. Take care. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, consider subscribing. I post videos like this every day. And you might even enjoy this next one.